Check, check, check. You guys hear me? Let me see. Yeah, just checking to see if you guys hear me.
Yep, we can hear you loud and clear, man.
Okay, so this is how we'll do it. I'll just mute myself. I mean, let me. You'll hear the studio, and you'll hear the song come in, and then I'll mute my mic, and that's your cue.
All right, sir, we're live right now, Phil.
No, we'll go in about 2 minutes. You'll hear the Prince America song. I'll give you the cue. I'll let you know. Like, I'll keep my mic open until, and then I'll let you know. I'll say 10 seconds, and then I'll have your mic live.
Sounds good.
And they say he looks slimmer. After the Lakers were eliminated in the first round of the playoffs by Minnesota, Coach J.J. Redick said some players on the team need to get in better shape. One of those players was Doncic, who the Lakers are counting on to be the new face of the franchise.
Yeah.
Doncic was under orders to commit to an off-season conditioning program. A new and improved Doncic will help the Lakers justify trading Anthony Davis to get him. The LA Sparks will try to snap a 3-game losing streak in the WNBA tonight in Chicago against the Sky. The Sparks are 4-10. Live coverage on NBA TV at 5 p.m. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversations when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
Yeah. At KBLA Talk 1580, we're proud to be celebrating 4 years on the air, but we know we could not have made it this far without you. We work hard every single day to curate conversations that will enlighten, encourage, and empower you. So, from all of us at KBLA Talk 1580, a big thank you for your love and support. You don't know how much you mean to me. And by the way, if your smartphone did not update automatically, be sure to download our brand new KBLA 1580 app. We think you'll love all the new features, including new ways to send us photos and video in real time. Whenever news breaks, while we're on the air, it's a new dawn, a new day for KBLA Talk 1580, and we're glad you're on this journey with us.
I'm about to play our intro. All right. I'll make your mic hot in 10 minutes. 10 seconds, I'm sorry.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. Another edition of the chaos that the world has become since the election of Donald John Trump as President of the United States. I hope the American people are paying attention to the pattern. The pattern of quick results, quick answers, create problems, then solve them, proclaim yourself the hero, seek the Nobel Peace Prize with forces in the Congress of the United States that are now sponsoring a resolution for a peace prize for starting a war. The non sequiturs, the amount of inconsistencies are just extraordinary in this presidency. There's really nothing to follow. There's nothing like it. There's nothing that history reflects is anything quite like this moment. The American people are at war with the people of Iran, not because of our own making, but because the United States of America chose to intervene in a very difficult conflict. It's like a bully throws a punch, and when he knocks you down, he then declares that the fight is over, without any regard for the person who's laying there on the canvas, who's working their way back to some level of cognition and sanity because they got hit in the head. But there's a long memory to this process. What seems like a victory, a military victory in the short run, has long-term consequences for the American people. Our very special guest today on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show, I don't know a person who has spent more time over the last 5 decades of their life seeking to bring Arabs and Jews together, Palestinians and Israelis. It's Tenacious Tuesdays on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. My very special guest is the president and founder of the Arab American Institute, Dr. James Zogby. No other American has worked harder for a two-state solution. He is an esteemed and distinguished member of the Democratic National Committee and was one of the original co-chairmen of Jesse Jackson's campaign for President of the United States. James Zogby is an American political commentator, activist, scholar known for his work on Arab-American relations and Middle Eastern affairs. He's the founder, again, of the Arab American Institute, a Washington, D.C.-based organization that serves as a political and policy research arm for and of the Arab American community. Dr. Zogby, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Thank you, Jesse, and so appreciative of the fact that you invited me to talk about what is, you're right, a very complicated issue that didn't need to be. I would only make one change in the analysis, and that is that it didn't start with Donald Trump. It started with Benjamin Netanyahu picking a fight, wanting this fight, needing this fight in order to stay in office. And he is the reason why we got into it. And the consequences will fall on us, not just on Israel and Iran, but you're right, on the United States.
I am very grateful, Jim, that you're spending this next and full hour with us to share with us, one, the history of how we got here. Number two, the options that have been placed on the table, hopefully over time, where we are, what we are looking at, and how we can unscramble this incredible egg that Humpty Dumpty, who sat on the wall, has now created for multiple generations of Americans. And I say that because given the nature of the passions, given the nature of the territory itself, the very complicated, layered nature of the Middle East, where 3 major religions have their foundation, we just don't get to call this a military conflict or a political conflict. I learned from you that these are deeply passionate issues where everyone sees the consequences and the ramifications of what they represent for their lives and their faiths. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. When we come forward, Dr. James Zogby is going to take us to school. He's going to share with us how we got here. He's going to share with us what's going on and the complicated nature of how difficult it's going to be to get out. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. You're listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Haiti is an intervention. When we come forward, includes you. KBLA Talk 1580, turning pain into power.
Yeah, yo, come on.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we fight the power every day.
Yeah,
I listen to KBLA and I love the commercials. I know what the commercials mean. I also, if I'm looking and trying to figure something out, I need something to talk to me that might hit me. And it happens on TV because, you know, every time they show a sporting event, they got the pharmaceutical companies back to back telling people how to fix the sickness on the same stuff that they tell. So we get it.
Yep, we get it too, Chucky. And that's why at KBLA Talk 1580, we don't back down.
Our freedom of speech is freedom of death. We got to fight the powers that be. Fight the power. Fight the power.
KBLA Talk 1580. We got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580 reminds you that we keep us safe. Every girl deserves a chance to shine. That's the belief behind Forgiving for Living, Inc. Since 1999, this organization has been empowering at-risk girls ages 13 to 18, helping them overcome behavioral and mental health challenges. Founder Wendy Gladney's personal journey inspired the mission to give girls hope and purpose through the power of forgiveness. Through their ambassador program, workshops, and annual conference, Forgiving for Living has touched over 3,000 young lives, providing mentoring, life skills, training, and tools for building self-esteem and confidence. You can make a difference. Visit forgivingforliving.org to donate, volunteer, become a mentor, or find help for a young girl in need. Forgiving for Living, Inc., building brighter futures for young girls. Visit forgivingforliving.org today.
Yeah, I have
this is a community call to
I
action
did an
from
assessment.
KBLA Talk
I think it was like
1580.
150 or something like that.
KBLA Talk 1580.
You said it's 115.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. LA County's new Justice Care and Opportunities Department, or JCOD, is here to support justice-involved individuals and their families. The JCOD Support Center is now taking calls at 1-833-LAC-JCOD. That's 1-833-522-5263. Available 7 days a week from 6 a.m. to 11 p.m. The Support Center is your one-stop shop for re-entry issues and court support. They offer court reminders, connections to local services, transportation assistance for housing, court appearances, and childcare. The JCOD hotline provides personalized help to connect you with services that you need. And don't forget to check out justiceconnect.org for more information. Remember, it's free and available every day.
I'll rejoin in about 1 minute.
522-5263. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Ron had a tax problem he just couldn't handle on his own.
I owed the IRS taxes for over 5 years, but I didn't have any money to pay the taxes.
Those years cost him dearly.
Most of it was fees and interest. It was horrible.
Ron finally called in the pros.
I called Optima Tax Relief. And boy, am I happy I did.
The leading tax resolution firm, Optima, is A+ rated by the Better Business Bureau. They've resolved over $1 billion for their clients. Ron was overjoyed.
They settled my account with IRS. I was ecstatic. They are a lifesaver. They are. I am so happy.
Take Ron's advice and call Optima now for a free consultation.
Yeah, don't do like I did. Wait, call Optima Tax Relief.
Rejoin in
You'll be ecstatic like me.
20 seconds and I'll start with music. And I'll let you know when your mic is hot.
800-919-9077.
Optima Tax Relief.
Testimonial from an actual client. Some restrictions apply. For complete details, please visit OptimaTaxRelief.com.
This is KBLA Talk 1580, where hate loses and love wins.
All right, I'll make you hot in 10 seconds.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. My guest is none other than the esteemed president and founder of the Arab American Institute, Dr. James Zogby. Dr. Zogby, welcome back to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Thank you.
Dr. Zogby, how did we get here?
Well, go back centuries. There's been a conflict between non-Arab entities for control of the Arab world. It was a conflict between the Ottomans and the Persians, more recently Turkey and Iran. But in the middle of that came the British and the French after World War I, who carved the region up against the will of the Arab people. They wanted a unitary Arab state. They had been promised that, they thought, before the Treaty of Versailles. And what they got instead was the Sykes-Picot Agreement that cut the Arab world into pieces, created Lebanon, Syria, Jordan, whatever, and Palestine, and gave Palestine to the Jewish people in the Balfour Declaration. They gave away a land that wasn't theirs to a people who weren't living there. And the Arabs were furious, but the British did it for a reason. They wanted control. They wanted to neutralize the Iranians. They wanted to neutralize the Turks. They wanted control of the Arab world, partly for their own economic interests and for their strategic interests. And they created the problem we've got. The founding of Israel and the expulsion of Palestinians is the wound in the heart of the Arab world that never healed. Going forward, might have been possible early on to find a way to resolve this, but instead of it being resolved, the British and French and now the Americans have exacerbated that, again, for control. There is this conflict in Gaza, which is born of an occupation that people are resisting and using tools in their resistance that I think are immoral. I mean, we've learned in struggles around the world, in South Africa, here in the United States, that nonviolent resistance actually works. Violent resistance only intensifies repression and the occupation. But in the middle of all of that, Israel's trying to neutralize its external enemies, and did it in Lebanon, did it in Syria. Now they're moving on to Iran, and the U.S. has been complicit in all this. We've provided tens of billions of dollars of weapons in just the last few years, and political support, even to the point where when the International Criminal Court says Israel is committing genocide, the U.S. sanctions the judges, freezes their accounts, etc. I mean, we've taken outrageous actions in order to stifle criticism of what Israel's doing. And the final blow, what Israel saw as the final blow, was dealing with Iran and removing it as a threat to them. Why is Iran a threat? Well, look, Iran has played a meddlesome game in the Arab world. It also was in competition for the Arab region. They have meddled in the internal affairs of different Arab countries, and they've used the resistance card. We are the last standing party that stands against the West, the domination of the British, French, Americans, etc., to control this region. And Israel needed to try to get rid of it, and the U.S. thought, hey, that's a good idea. Just go ahead, guys, and gave them the go-ahead to do it. But when Israel couldn't get the job done, the U.S. stepped in with 30,000-pound bombs to blow up Iran's nuclear facilities, which is really dangerous because you release radiation, which will affect the entire region. Well, apparently they didn't succeed in doing that. There's no report of radiation exposure, which means that they didn't get the material. It's been moved. And Trump, I think after his initial bluster, we removed it completely, we obliterated it, was looking for a way out. And the Iranians were looking for a way out too. This is a fight they can't win. And so it appears that there was an agreement to allow them to do a simple attack on an air base in Qatar as their off-ramp. And the U.S. took the off-ramp and said, okay, we're done. It's over. Let's have peace. And then said to the Israelis, cut it out. We're stopping it right now. So you're right. This is a war we helped start, and now we help finish. And he wants a freaking medal for it. But the point here is that this is not the end of anything. Unfortunately, it's not. We saw every time we've seen this happen, whether it was in Afghanistan or whether it was in Libya or whether it was in Iraq, when you disrupt the internal situation in a country, there are consequences that will live for decades. We don't know what comes out of this. If Iran is toppled as the leader of the resistance. Someone else is going to come along to lead the resistance, because there are issues that people still have. There is inequality in Lebanon. There is a sectarian regime in Syria that is, as we saw with the bombing of Christians just recently. There is an occupation in Israel, Palestine, and pretending that they're all not there, that they'll just go away because we took out Iran or we neutralized Iran or they no longer have the military capacity to deal with us, means that the leaders of the resistance will look elsewhere, find their leadership, their source of inspiration elsewhere. That's the tragedy. The solution is not to deal military blows, but it's to solve the root problems that create the resistance in the first place. That's inequality, that's sectarianism, and it's the Israeli occupation of the Palestinians and the disruption and the genocide right now being committed against Palestinian people. If that's not solved, we'll be right back where we are today in a decade from now, maybe sooner.
Now, I want to try and connect a few dots here and let me know if I'm wrong. I don't believe that the first bombs that were dropped by the president without Congress's consent, let me be clear on that, without authorization from the Gang of Eight or from the United States Senate and members of Congress's basic notifications. I think the first bomb was dropped on the Constitution. And I think we got hints of it when the 3 university professors went to Capitol Hill. And they all essentially gave the same statement about combating anti-Semitism on campuses. All 3 of these university presidents lost their jobs. I think he dropped the bomb on Los Angeles and is willing to drop the bomb on other United States cities when he moved in 4,500 troops into Los Angeles, including, I believe, 700 Marines, real combat troops. Hard to believe that Marines are necessary on the ground to round up men and women who came across the border illegally. What do we need the Marines for in Los Angeles? They're presently there about 1 square mile, but they could easily be deployed across the entire city. Really to quell any kind of protests that might erupt from what we just saw in Iran, where the president acted without Congress. If there is a city that erupts in major protest, I think Donald Trump expands the U.S. military presence in American cities. And I think this is just the beginning of a major crisis. Dr. Zogby, please let me know if I'm wrong.
No question. But I would want to go a step further and go backward. He's not the first president to have acted without Congress. And so he's continuing a tradition. Unfortunately, Bill Clinton did it. George W. did it. Barack Obama did it. There was no authorization to take out Libya. And while they did not use, although Bush did use the repression of the state with the Patriot Act and the roundups that occurred after 9/11, thousands of people deported. Most of them completely innocent of any crime whatsoever. They were just the wrong religion and the wrong from the wrong countries. Donald Trump is institutionalizing this use of state power and personalizing it in a way that is exceptionally dangerous. But the seeds have been planted. I remember poor Barbara Lee when she was in the Congress year after year trying to get a resolution to overturn the authorization of the use of military force that cowardly Democrats gave George Bush during his lead up to the Iraq War. And even during the Obama era, she would put that resolution forward. I was chair of the resolutions committee on the Democratic Party, and we were told, we can't do it. We're pulling that resolution. I said, she's a member of Congress. The White House, that was the Obama White House, didn't want it. So this issue of the erosion of congressional authority and the cult of the presidency is not new. Donald Trump is taking it, though, to new levels. And I think that is the danger here.
Dr. Zogby, we've all been convinced, certainly when I was in Congress for 17 years, that the two-state solution was a way for Israelis and Palestinians to live side by side in harmony. Given what has taken place in Gaza, including but not limited to the tragedy of October 7th, but also the obliteration of the Gaza Strip itself. Is a two-state solution possible?
I think not. I think that, I call it the two-state absolution. People have, for now decades, ignored what was happening in the West Bank and Gaza and East Jerusalem. And I remember it was kind of hilarious. First time I used this expression was 2016. New York Times did an interview with all the candidates who were running. I know 2020 rather, all the candidates who were running, and they published it in the paper. They also did videos of it, and I watched the videos because one of the questions was, if you were asked to vote on Israel's violation of human rights of Palestinians and reduce aid because of that, what would you do? And I remember the look on some of their faces. Amy Klobuchar, it was like, I don't know if you follow the comic strips, the character Big Nate. And when the teacher says we have a pop quiz today, the look on his face is like, oh shit, I'm really screwed now. And that was the look on her face when they asked her that question. And then she immediately bounced back and said, I'm for a two-state solution, as if that somehow absolved her from having to answer the question, because I'm for the. So I started calling it the two-state absolution. It's like, don't bother me with genocide. Don't bother me with apartheid. Don't talk to me about human rights violations. Don't talk to me about annexation. I'm for a two-state solution. Meanwhile, the conditions that would allow a two-state solution to exist have been eroded. 750,000 settlers in the West Bank, infrastructure built that makes it impossible for Palestinians from one part of the West Bank to get to another part of the West Bank. Gaza obliterated. We just finished a poll there. 70% of homes completely demolished. People being corralled into a small area, about a fourth of Gaza, which was already the most densely populated place on earth. Now it's inhumane what's happened. And they're talking a two-state solution. What we have to talk about is ending the damn occupation, ending the strangulation and starvation of people, getting the Israeli forces out of there and bringing in international forces with a humane approach that will help people rebuild and save their lives. When we ask people right now, what do you want in Gaza? They say, I just want things to go back to the way they were so I can feed my family. We've created that level of desperation. So two-state solution, one-state solution, no state. I mean, I don't know. What I do know is that the occupation is killing people, and we are doing nothing to stop it. And the way we absolve ourselves from that is say, well, let's talk about a two-state solution. So the issue is end the occupation, end the strangulation of Gaza, end the annexation, get Israeli forces out of the occupied territories. Then we can start to talk about where do we go from there.
Dr. Tapi, we have about 2 minutes before we come forward, which is essentially our break. I don't want to let Hamas off the hook. I don't want to let them off the hook for what they did on October 7th, which clearly poked the bear. And the consequences of it were that Bibi Netanyahu was under, I believe, criminal indictment in Israel. His back was against the wall. And Hamas decided to poke the bear. It's clear, at least from this perspective, with about 1 minute and 45 seconds left in this particular segment. Can you share with us whether or not Hamas has the right to continue to act like they have control in the Gaza Strip, or are the Palestinian people, for their legitimate determination, in a position to say we've had enough of this?
In polling that
I've just been told by my producer, I think this question's going to have to be answered once we come forward. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. My very special guest is the most knowledgeable person on Middle East politics and Arab American affairs in the United States, Dr. James Zogby, when we come forward.
over to the right shoulder. And on the 5 northbound, right at Glendale Boulevard. That right lane still shut down with that brush fire. Hopefully going to be opening that pretty soon. You've still got stop and go traffic, though, coming away from the 10. Downtown LA on the 101 southbound, right at 4th Street. That off-ramp partially blocked with an accident there.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
Lakers fans will be happy to hear this. NBA sources are saying that Luka Doncic has been incredibly committed to his off-season conditioning. He's on a strict diet and has been doing a lot of cardio training. Some people have seen photos of Doncic, and they say he looks slimmer. After the Lakers were eliminated in the first round of the playoffs by Minnesota, Coach J.J. Redick said some players on the team need to get in better shape. One of those players was Doncic, who the Lakers are counting on to be the new face of the franchise. Doncic was under orders to commit to an off-season conditioning program. A new and improved Doncic will help the Lakers justify trading Anthony Davis to get him. The LA Sparks will try to snap a 3-game losing streak in the WNBA tonight in Chicago against the Sky. The Sparks are 4-10. Live coverage on NBA TV at 5 p.m. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We got lots to talk about. I'm Reverend Gerald, the life coach. Is someone you love struggling with addiction and mental illness? Is improving your family's health important? Want to leave a legacy that your family can grow? Are you ready to enhance your perception of life experiences? Then wake up weekends at 7 a.m. with Urban Family Focus and get the wisdom, opportunity, resources, and motivation to live your best life. Join the conversation on Urban Family Focus Saturday and Sunday at 7 a.m. Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
Pasadena City College is proud to support Conversation Live Altadena Rising with James Farr. For over 100 years, PCC has been a pillar of the community, and we're here for you as we work together to recover from the Eaton fire and rebuild Altadena's future. At PCC, we offer diverse career education programs that prepare you for in-demand jobs, fueling both today's recovery and tomorrow's growth. Whether you're starting a new career or advancing your skills, PCC gives you tools to build your future and your community. Pasadena City College, here for the Dena, here for you. Learn more at pccfordena.com.
Hear that? That's the sound of your life. Perfectly imperfect. Beating in rhythm to the world you've created. But every time you drive after drinking, music gets drowned out. Life sounds pretty great. Don't let a buzz ruin it. Buzz driving is drunk driving. Don't drive buzzed. A message from Nits in the Ad Council.
KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA Talk 1580 is committed to self-care and community well-being. Walk Good LA.
All right, 1 minute to rejoin.
Inspired by the Black Lives Matter movement and the beginning stages of the COVID-19 pandemic. What began as a few minutes of breath work and yoga meditation before protests against police brutality turned into a safe space for the community to heal in hard times. The immensely positive response from the community transformed the momentum into a movement. Today, Walk Good LA is a Black and Brown-led community wellness organization based in Los Angeles. They provide spaces for healing through community yoga classes, guided meditations, hikes, run clubs, and other activations throughout Los Angeles that attract hundreds of members weekly. With the help of Propel and Michael B. Jordan, they now have a yoga and wellness studio in Los Angeles called the Walk Good Yard. To join their mailing list and connect with healing spaces, please visit walkgoodla.org. That's walkgoodla.org. Or find them on Instagram at walkgoodla. This is a community call to action, a community call to healing from KBLA Talk 1580.
Find a righteous rage and don't be afraid to say what you see. We're KBLA Talk 1580.
Right. Make your mic hot in 10 seconds.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. My very special guest in this hour is the nation, in my opinion, foremost authority on Middle Eastern politics, domestic politics for Arab Americans. Just no one has studied it longer, polled it on the ground in the Middle East more consistently than Dr. James Zogby. He is connected to the American political apparatus from sea to shining sea and the Arab American community. Dr. Zogby, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Thank you, Jesse.
Dr. Zogby, just before the break, we talked about poking that bear. And October 7th poked, obviously, the Netanyahu bear. It also poked the Joe Biden bear to defend Israel at all costs in an election year. Obviously, we know what happened with Joe Biden's campaign. But the consequences of the American involvement and engagement in Gaza had a profound impact on American domestic politics. I think without any question, and there is buyer's remorse in many corners of the United States where Arab Americans exist, in voting against Kamala Harris, where we could have won, we believe, the election, particularly in the state of Michigan. I say that to say that the past is prologue. We learn from the past, and there are things in the future that matter to the past. And here we have this unprecedented activity and expansion of Israel's military authority far beyond the initial event on October 7th. Does this change anything on the ground in the Middle East?
Let me, number of threads here I want to pull apart, Jesse, from the last segment to now. First about Hamas. You're right. They kicked the hornet's nest or the bear, whatever you want term you want to use. And that has been a standard practice. I have opposed them from the 80s when they first got going. And I remember after the Oslo Accords, they did a lot of suicide bombings, born of desperation, to be sure. I mean, young 14-year-old kids don't commit suicide unless they're despairing and see no future, no hope. And that was the case. I mean, some had hope in the peace process, and Israel killed it right away. When I went with your dad in '94 to Jerusalem, we saw on the ground the Israelis would not let us hold a peace conference in Jerusalem at the hotel, encouraging Palestinians to support peace, surrounded the hotel with troops, wouldn't let us even go out of the hotel. It was shocking. And we talked to Rabin, we talked to Perez, and they both said, we can't let you do this. And when the stories came out in the paper the next day, it was like the old Soviet newspapers. The square was had an empty square because they took the story out. They didn't have time to reset the paper. They wouldn't even let the papers talk about it. But Hamas deliberately did this, preying off of the despair in order to provoke a response that they thought would catapult them into a leadership position. And it kind of did. People were angry and despairing enough that they said, you guys, maybe the other guys didn't do anything. They didn't deliver anything. And so Hamas won. And when they won, they actually did just as badly as they did before they won. They continued to provoke. We polled on this, and what we found in the most recent polls is that in Gaza, 4% of the people support Hamas. That's it. So the Israelis are saying, well, we've got to do this because the entire population supported. They didn't support. They didn't even vote for Hamas in the election in 2006 when they won. So that's that part of it. The second part of it is, where are we now? Where we are now is a situation where there is genocide. And it continues, 50 or so people a day. It's not in the headlines anymore because Iran newspapers can't walk and chew gum at the same time, I guess. What's happening there is just not a story. People have been forced to move as many as 10 times in the last 2.5 years. Families are dying of starvation. And Hamas is the only organized structure that remains on the ground. The Israelis have created this humanitarian foundation, which we're funding, U.S. funding, and killing people who show up to get food as a form of crowd control, shooting snipers, shooting 20, 30 people to kind of herd them into an orderly fashion. You create the starvation, you force people to go to these certain locations, and then you shoot them. That's got to end. And what Trump showed, if anything, telling the Israelis that they had to turn their planes around today in Iran, he could do that in Gaza. Biden could have done that in Gaza. Biden, I had conversations with his national security advisor, with his secretary of state. When we said, you got to have a ceasefire, they said that would be intolerable. And I said, intolerable? You mean you're willing to let more people die? And they said, well, there's no other option. They let that happen too long. Too many people, innocent people died. And the U.S. got a very black eye in the process. With regard to the election, we've done polling on that. And Gaza did have an impact. People who voted for Biden in 2020 didn't vote for him didn't vote for Kamala in 2024. And 29% of them said it was Gaza was the reason. And they weren't mostly Arab. There were a lot of young students, a lot of Black people, a lot of Asian people, a lot of Hispanic people and a lot of young progressive Jews were so infuriated by what Democrats had allowed to happen. They bit their nose off to spite their face. I endorsed Kamala Harris. I got blowback from my own community for it, but I said, you're going to regret this. And I know that Kamala Harris in her heart wanted to do the right thing. She listened to the wrong people, got the wrong advice, and made the wrong decision. She should have backed away from Joe Biden early on in this situation. What do you do now? What you do now is you have to get the Israelis out. You have to get them out and have them replaced by an international peacekeeping force, which the U.S. cannot be a part of. It's got to be Arab. It's got to be neutral, maybe African countries participating to stabilize the situation so that there's an organized force that is not Hamas, that is in Gaza, in the West Bank. You've got the West Bank is being ignored right now, but there are tens of thousands of people who've been evicted from homes that have been demolished by the Israelis as they try to consolidate their control over that area. If the Israelis aren't removed and replaced by an international peacekeeping force, this will continue for yet another decade at least.
Jim, we've got about a minute and 30 seconds before we come forward. I do want to ask you this question. For decades, we've been saying that America must be seen, must be perceived, and must actually be an honest broker in this process. Is that the case any longer?
No, it's not. And frankly, I don't think anyone would believe us if we were. The only thing we can do is tell the Israelis, stop, get the hell out, or we're cutting you off. That's got a snowball's chance in hell of happening, given the way Congress is so cowardly in this regard. But maybe Donald Trump might have the guts to do it, just like he just did with stopping Israel and Iran going at each other. I don't know. But I do know that if the U.S. were to convene a peace conference, no one would believe it's a peace conference because we have so sullied ourselves. It's sort of like, asking Liz Taylor, are you going to be faithful this time? You get a couple shots, a couple bites at the apple. At some point, they stop believing you. And I think people just stop believing us right now.
I only have about 30 seconds. Is there any honest broker left in the world who can pull both sides together and have an honest peace conference?
There is. I mean, there's the UN, but the UN is, if any tragedy has occurred since the Biden administration in particular, but also Bush, going back there, is that we have so destroyed the architecture of diplomacy that came out of World War II, the UN, international law, the Geneva Conventions, things that mattered, where the world said, we're not going to do this again. We've got to stop. And so they created this architecture. We've dismantled it. It no longer exists. UN is a joke. But if it were empowered, it could actually make a difference.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr., listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. Our very special guest is the most distinguished Dr. James Ogby, Arab American Institute president and founder. When we come forward, some final thoughts.
shifting money habits as they grow.
You guys are going to go all the way out to the top of the hour, I assume. Or, yeah, I assume that's what's going on. Okay, all right.
Explain the basics, what you earn and what you spend. Financial confidence starts with getting organized. Learning and practicing vital money skills now will stay with them for life. Tools they will have to stay on top of their finances and achieve their goals. This segment is sponsored by JP Morgan Chase.
My mom has decided to learn to paint, and she's good.
My dad's now into creative cuisine, and I've already put on 6 pounds. Learning new things comes with age.
My mom, she started forgetting my name and what we're talking about.
Forgetting well-known things. Memory loss may be a sign of Alzheimer's disease. Early detection gives you and your loved one time to plan for the future. Learn the warning signs of Alzheimer's at 10signs.org. Brought to you by the Alzheimer's Association and the Ad Council.
Nationwide is so much more than a great insurance company. We're one of America's largest financial services companies. Like how more than safely work with the NFL's reigning leading rusher. I'm also the NFL's leading rusher. Shh, hush up back there. Wow, I might have just said the hushing. Well, almost. For your insurance and financial needs, Nationwide is on your side.
Nationwide Investment Services Corporation and FINRA, Columbus, Ohio.
Looking for a purposeful and passionate way to make a difference in your community? Volunteer with our Senior Medicare Patrol and help prevent Medicare fraud. S&P volunteers work in their community, educating peers about healthcare fraud and how to prevent and detect it. Free training starts soon. Check us out online or at an S&P open house near you. We're on a mission to stop fraud. Join our team. You make a difference. Visit caSMPvolunteer.org. Protect yourself from Medicare card scams. Scammers may call, email, or even knock on your door claiming they need your Medicare info, asking for money or threatening to cancel your benefits. Don't fall for it. It's a scam. Remember, Medicare doesn't need to verify your information. They already have it. Medicare won't charge you for a new card and will never threaten to cancel benefits. Check your Medicare statements for suspicious charges and report scams to the California Senior Medicare Patrol at 1-855-613-7080. We're here to help.
Lena Bloom for the Bail Project. Imagine you're stuck in a jail cell and you can't afford bail, and someone offers you a way out. Just plead guilty and you can go home and kiss your kids goodnight. What do you do? What thousands have. You plead guilty whether you are or not. Cash bail makes poverty a crime. That's why the Bail Project helps those who can't afford it while fighting to end cash bail. Because freedom should be free. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. If you need help getting your resume in order, finding job training, or landing a job, we've got 3 great options for you. First, the city of Los Angeles has workforce centers across the area offering free job support. The California Workforce Development Board can help you with everything from GED prep to vocational training at no cost to you. On the federal level, the Department of Labor's American Job Centers offer a full range of services for job seekers and businesses alike. Visit careeronestop.org, or for more info, just call California's Help Center or visit cwdb.ca.gov or call 916-657-1440. For the
Rejoin 30 seconds.
Go to ewdd.lacity.gov or call 213-744-7300. All of these services are free to help you get your next job. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
We're not for everybody, but we're for everybody. You're listening to KBLA Talk 1580.
All right, make it hot in 10 seconds. Hold on. Go ahead, you guys.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. Our very special guest for the last hour has been Dr. James Zogby, one of the nation's foremost authority on the Middle East, on Arab, American, and Jewish politics here in the United States, as well as Palestinian and Israeli politics, and with the Arab world in the Middle East. A fairly amazing biography for his extraordinary work. Dr. Zaipi, welcome forward, and welcome back to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Thank you.
Dr. Zaipi, I have two questions.
Read that bio and you say that stuff, and we had entree and input in the Clinton years. They listened to us. Biden didn't listen to anything, and never had a meeting in the White House. Never. And Obama didn't do much better. They're surrounded by a group of guys. Your dad used to call them the smart ass white boys, except they're not all white and they're not all boys. Anyway. But there's a culture that develops that they know everything and don't need any input. And the result is that they blundered their way through the Iraq War and everything since. I remember saying to Obama at one point, it's not that when you leave, it's what you do between now and what you leave. And they did all the wrong stuff. They did all the wrong stuff and didn't listen to anybody.
When you think about the collection of movies and sitcoms and dramas that have been produced over the last couple of decades, you've got an entire generation that grew up on the West Wing. You've got an entire generation that grew up on executive decisions and Oval Office decisions. And the real tragedy, in a real sense, is that's what they think presidential leadership is. And that's where it comes from. Courage to muster groupthink and encourage the president to look good without making or having a moral conscience in the decisions that they make. I've got two questions, and the final.
I grew up on Mr. Smith Goes to Washington. That was no problem. Anyway,
a decent man goes to Washington. That's exactly who he was. Let me ask you this. It seems to me, and let me make this domestic as quickly as we can, that this is going to have some kind of consequences for the 2026 midterm elections. I don't know what form it's going to present itself. I suspect a bunch of resolutions on the floor of the Congress supporting Donald Trump, bombing Iran, offered by AIPAC, lobbied Donald Trump, the Nobel Peace Prize, all of this stuff to put Democrats on the record to show which side of this conflict were you on. And if the so-called ceasefire sustains itself, even temporarily, there may be an environment where Donald Trump's polling numbers and the House of Representatives polling numbers go up while the Democratic numbers go down because they have to vote the way their constituents feel about the overall conflict. Jim Zogby, no one knows this better than you. What are the consequences of what we're looking at for the 2026 midterm?
Look, the issue is, are Democrats going to bite the bait? The Republicans, you're right, they want to make a $250 bill with Donald Trump's name on it. They want to change Dulles Airport to Donald Trump Airport. They're going to throw out all the stuff just like they did with trans bathrooms and all that stuff. They're going to try to make the battle on the ground they're most comfortable with. We need to not bite the bait and keep focused on the issues that matter to most of the American people. In foreign policy, they know Israel was wrong. They know that bombing Iran was wrong. They know that. You can just say that and put it aside and then focus on what are you doing about Medicaid? What are you doing about Social Security? What are you doing about housing? What are you doing about dreamers, about kids who grew up here? And what are you going to do about who picks our vegetables, who prepares meat for the market, who cleans our offices, who builds our buildings, who keeps our cities? I mean, we need to focus on the issues that matter to most people. Instead, I bet you're right. What'll happen is that we'll end up biting the bait and making, they said this, we got to fight them back. No, let them dig their hole and ignore it and focus on the issues that matter, which are, number one, we got to, in foreign policy, stop supporting oppression, stop supporting violation of human rights, bring the money home. That's what Donald Trump ran on. We should have run on that. We don't need a bloated defense budget. We don't need a foreign aid budget that is focused mainly on military supplies to countries that abuse those military supplies. We need foreign aid that focuses on meeting people's need, stopping disease around the world, because it will impact us. If we don't stop it there, it'll come here, et cetera, et cetera. We need a democratic people's agenda, not fighting the fight on their agenda. Let them make noise about the Nobel Peace Prize. It's garbage. We need to focus on what people want here.
I absolutely agree. That should be our focus. I want to give you an opportunity to share with us in the final 3 minutes of our program a word of hope between a people that the world has been hoping and praying would find a way to coexist, whether in two-state solutions or in a multiracial democracy. The idea that they could come together is something we've all longed for. Dr. James
is for young people, is with young people. They're a global generation with an entirely different consciousness about the world. And we see it in our own families, my grandkids, your kids, the kids that we see growing up on campuses. I mean, look, you want to see Arab-Jewish solidarity? Look at those encampments. They were largely against the war in Gaza. They were largely Jewish and Arab kids who did them together. Look at what's happening. I mean, in everything from starting with the Women's March to the Black Lives Matter to the guns, no guns and save our lives, to the Gaza. It was young people of every faith, color, and creed. They are the hope. There is a change of consciousness that we need to build on and give hope to. We need your dad running again. We need Bernie Sanders to be 20 years younger. We need a new generation of leaders that reflect that kind of principled and inspirational message that can bring people together. That's what they want. That's what they want.
Our very special guest has been Dr. James Zogby. Dr. Zogby, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. Grateful for you being here, and you're welcome back anytime.
It is an honor to be with you. Thank you, Jesse. Thank you so
Dr. Zogby. I'm so grateful for your leadership.
Thank you.
In these final moments of our program in the first hour, I do want to say that Dr. James Zogby has been a source of hope over many, many decades. The importance of bringing people together against or across political lines, racial lines, religious lines, in an effort to build a common unity, to build a community. How difficult it has been. It's tragic when all diplomacy ends at the end of a rifle, at the end of a bomb, at the end of military might, which does not make it right. There are short-term victories in military battles. We learned that at Gettysburg. We learned that at Appomattox. But the fight continues. It showed up on our doorsteps on January 6th with Confederate flags running through our democracy, interfering with a presidential election process. We are part of a process, not just an event. But in the final analysis, Martin Luther King Jr. believed that love would be the ultimate reality, that forgiveness, that mercy. John F. Kennedy said, in this moment, we are human. We all inhabit the same planet. That we have finitude as part of who we are as human beings. And ultimately, we're going to have to learn how to coexist. And so today, I am Israeli. And yes, today, I am Iranian. Today, I am Arab, and today, I am also Israeli. Today, I'm Black, but today, I'm also white. Today, I'm Oriental, and I'm Occidental. I'm willing to meet my neighbor, and we should be willing to meet our neighbors on their mutually shared terms so that we can coexist. In the final analysis, love, I genuinely believe, is the ultimate reality. When we come forward, Dr. Barbara Arnwine on Tenacious Tuesdays. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr.
I'm Ava Payton with BIA News Now. New York City officials want changes to the raise the age law, which sends most 16 and 17-year-olds to family court instead of criminal court. Bronx DA Darcel Clark, who's Black, says it's leading adults to hand teens guns to dodge tougher charges.
The mentality on the street is that nothing happens to those under 18 who possesses or uses a gun.
The push follows a 208-count gang indictment involving 19 people, 9 of them teens. Prosecutors are expected to rest today in Sean Diddy Combs' sex crimes trial. The jury could start deliberating this week as the defense will not call witnesses but will submit evidence. Former University of Michigan DEI officer Rachel Dawson plans to sue the school, saying she was fired for supporting a pro-Palestinian protest. Dawson, whose flag says she was punished for urging police not to arrest student protesters and was treated unfairly compared to non-Black staff. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
Lakers fans will be happy to hear this. NBA sources are saying that Luka Doncic has been incredibly committed to his off-season conditioning. He's on a strict diet and has been doing a lot of cardio training. Some people have seen photos of Doncic and they say he looks slimmer. After the Lakers were eliminated in the first round of the playoffs by Minnesota, Coach J.J. Redick said some players on the team need to get in better shape. One of those players was Doncic, who the Lakers are counting on to be the new face of the franchise. Doncic was under orders to commit to an off-season conditioning program. A new and improved Doncic will help the Lakers.
Are you to be the guest for the show? Okay, give me 1 second. Let me place you on hold, and I'll get you connected.
No speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute.
All right, I got your guest. Hold on, we're gonna rejoin in about a minute. I gotta get. Hold on 1 second. All right, I got your guests on the phone. I think you guys should be able to hear. Hold on. All right, give me 1 second. I'm gonna get everything started with music. Just give me 1 second. All right, hold on, guys.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. The Autopsy Initiative provides a second autopsy free of charge for victims' families who have lost their loved ones due to a police-related death.
All right, hold on, you guys.
The initiative include the completion of a second autopsy, disclosure of preliminary findings, and a final autopsy report. A police-related death is when an individual is harmed by police officers using deadly force, which results in an individual's death. Police-related death. Board-certified pathologists on call. An autopsy request may be completed by anyone with a close relationship with the victim, which may include the victim's spouse, partner, relative, close friend, or lawyer. To request a free second autopsy for a victim of police violence, please visit knowyourrightscamp.com. That's knowyourrightscamp.com. Then click on autopsy, then click on request.
All right, we're going to start with music in 10 seconds, and then I'll make you guys hot in 10 seconds after that.
From KBLA, Talk 1580.
Right, your mic will be hot in 10 seconds.
Barbara Arnwine, our special guest, is with us. Barbara.
Yes. Hi, how are you?
Fine, thank you. I am so glad that you're joining us today on Tenacious Tuesdays, and we don't know a more tenacious contributor than attorney Barbara Arnwine. Barbara, before we turn to some of the domestic issues, because we have about 3 minutes before the break, our very special guest was a mutual friend of ours, Dr. James Zogby, in the last hour. Please share with us your thoughts on what has taken place in the Middle East over the last week.
It's an outrage. I mean, how in the world do you bomb somebody you're not at war with? I mean, this was a political ploy, a political play. It has nothing to do with bringing peace to the region. It has nothing to do with justice. Has nothing to do with anything but trying to deflect political attention away from the failures of this administration. I am extremely distraught, extremely upset. I just don't believe that the American people should be led down this rabbit hole. And we absolutely are not helping whatsoever to make things better for humanity in the Arab region. This is horrendous what has happened.
Barbara, I asked Jim just before he left our call, and we have about 2 minutes left in this segment of the program. I asked Jim whether or not he thought that the consequences of what has taken place over the last week and a half or so have consequences and ramifications for the 2026 election cycle. Your initial thoughts about that?
Well, I think clearly the Trump administration is hoping it helps them. They were doing so bad. His ratings were so low. He hasn't really, I mean, he thinks this is a winning hand and they're trying to play it, spin it. But the American people are correctly skeptical, correctly trying to figure out why in the world are we doing this, and skeptical about the fact that it will not endanger our lives and not here, just not foreign, but domestically. And I think that people have to understand that war is never ending. And that when you go to war with people and you bomb them needlessly and you try to restrict their abilities to, to actualize their potential, that people are going to always remember. There's going to always be someone who's upset, always somebody who remember. And so this is a tragedy of unknown consequences. We really should not be engaged in this war. It's not ours. And it really shouldn't be happening, period. We should be urging, peace, but not peace with and under the threat of, some kind of knife cutting somebody's throat.
You're listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show, one of our great contributors every Tuesday on the grind with Barbara Arnwine on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. She's going to give it to us straight. She's going to give it to us clear every single time. She's one of our community and the civil rights community and the human rights community's most serious lawyers and advocates, from Capitol Hill to the Supreme Court of the United States. Our very special guest in this hour is none other than the tenacious Barbara Arnwine, who is on the grind with the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show when we come forward.
Junior.
All right, music is starting right now. 10 seconds, I'll make your mic hot.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. It's Tenacious Tuesdays with our most tenacious contributor on the grind with Dr. Attorney Barbara Arnwine. I know she's going to say, I don't want to be called Dr. Arnwine.
You know
but
it.
she is she is Attorney Barbara Arnwine, Esquire. That means JD. That means Juris Doctorate. So she is who she is. Dr. Arnwine, Attorney Arnwine, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Thank you so much for having me, and thank you for your great show.
I'm honored that you're going to be a regular contributor. And before we share some of that fluff stuff, there's a lot that's on your mind, and there's a lot taking place in the body politic of our nation at this hour.
Yes.
Share with us your vision, one of the show, but also share with us what's going on right now that we should be turning our attention to.
There's so much that's happening around our country. I mean, what this bombing represents is what we've been fighting since the day this administration has taken power, and that is nothing but overreach and unconstitutional actions. He has no authority to declare war. He has no authority to be bombing somebody we're not at war with. So we're just seeing this over and over. All those hundreds of executive orders that he has issued, most of which have been challenged successfully because they're unlawful, they're unconstitutional. It's just overreach. It's this whole notion coming out of Project 2025 of what they call the imperial executive, which means that the executive, instead of having the balance of the three branches of government, Congress, judiciary, executive, the executive is in charge of everything, and that everybody should bow to the executive. So this is a absolutely un-American concept. It does not purport with what the Constitution itself demands. But instead, this administration is just hell-bent, and there's no other word to it, to just exercise unfettered power, raw political power, intimidation, threatening citizens, threatening governors, threatening all kinds of elected officials at every level, putting people in handcuffs like Senator Alex Padilla, arresting people in New York who are, and threatening to arrest more, telling people that they can't exercise their First Amendment rights, which are in the Constitution for a reason. There's a reason why it's the First Amendment. There's nothing more important than the ability of the people to protest government when government does wrong. There's no more important right of the people than to assemble in protests and to raise their voices. And for him to be threatening the people for doing that is absolutely outrageous. I'm sick of it. I'm sick of this Gestapo, ICE, running around the country trying to terrorize, communities, terrorizing, citizens and, quote, non-citizens, undocumented people alike. I just think that the damage that they've done to the federal workforce is absolutely outrageous. People are being denied benefits, are being denied the protections that this government was set to put up to help for the people. His excesses with that military parade, that even the military was walking out of step and refusing the goose step to come on out. They were through with it. They knew it was just stupid.
Barbara, wait a second.
Don't get me started.
You got me laughing. That's why we call this Tenacious Tuesdays. Now, I'm going to push back a little bit on the tenacity. I want to ask you a couple of questions. So I'm Donald Trump. Of course, I'm not. But he might say, well, let's take one issue at a time. He might say, but I got results.
What results? He got a stupid parade that made him the laughing stock of the nation? Really? That's a result?
Well, we'll get to the parade. Let me deal with Iran first. He says he can say that there have been 4 presidents, maybe 5, who promised to end Iran's nuclear ambition. I did it in a day. Barbara Arnwine's response to that one issue, and then we'll go right down the list of the others for which
He
you've
did
offered
that
now.
without a forethought. He did it in opposition to Tulsi Gabbard's intelligence advice. Come on now, when Tulsi Gabbard is telling you that something's wrong and you're insisting on doing it, you need to think about it, because she is, more, she is somebody who I have never trusted, and have serious questions about her loyalties. But for her to tell him, as the intelligence community told him, that at most, I mean, if you really wanted to stretch it, that Iran was at least 3 years away from having anything approximating a nuclear capacity that could be weaponized. And after the bombing by Israel was at least 12 years out, then he just decides to override her advice and that of the intelligence community, and just to do what he feels like doing. Listen, folks, you might think that's strength, but sometimes what people think is strength is ignorance. You do not, go against your best intelligence assessments. And to this day, he can't tell us why. He can't tell us who gave him better advice. He can't tell us nothing other than the fact that it, quote, was a success. Listen, if I'm a big old bully and I run around and I'm 600 pounds and I see a little 50-pound weakling and I grab their candy, then I run around to about I'm successful. Come on. It's just ridiculous. It was unnecessary. But worst of all, it's dangerous. You bombed a nuclear facility. Which of course has the capacity for leaks and other problems to endanger the population. You bombed unnecessarily a country that's not at war with you, but now that you've set off a whole population against you, a whole region against you. Come on, this is not in our interest. If I were a cartoonist, I would do a big cartoon, and I would have I would have Trump with a leash on his neck and snarling like a big old bad dog, and some other people controlling the dog, because this doesn't make sense. It is illogical. It's not in our best interest. It brings no peace to the region. There's no way. You can't bomb your way to peace. This is just the worst thinking, the worst actions. There's a reason why Obama didn't do it, a reason why Biden didn't do it, a reason why Bush 1 didn't do it, a reason why Bush 2 didn't do it, a reason why Trump 1 didn't do it, because it doesn't comport. It doesn't make sense. It was an absolutely illogical, very poorly exercise of judgment. I mean, we got nukes, we got bombs, we got as the U.S., we have all of this stuff, but power isn't in your raw exercise of it. It's in your intelligent moves to make sure that you're using all of your power, including your soft diplomacy power. He tore up the agreement, right? He tore up the existing agreement with Iran, and then talking about why won't they come back to the table? If somebody slaps you back and forth, do you go back to get more of it? Come on, people. Come on. Okay, you asked me.
Barbara, let me give you the next issue. Okay, that's good. I mean, you knocked me out of my chair. I asked you to push back, and then I'm sitting here trying to get up off the ground. So let me give you the next one. I promised I'm Donald Trump, right? But I'm not. I promised I'm going to reduce the size of the federal government, that my Department of Government Efficiency has run through every major administrative agency, tore it up, and now I've got this big, beautiful bill to make everything permanent. Barbara Arnwine, let him have it.
DOGE, Department of Governmental Efficiency, has been a failure, everybody. You can cut all the staffing you want to, but you should do it intelligently. Like if I want to cut my budget, do I go and just say, well, I'm just going to cut, hundreds of dollars from everything. Instead, I got to prioritize food. I got to prioritize, my housing. I got to prioritize, my transport. I mean, you prioritize, you think out, you plan, and you don't just do something overnight whimsy. You don't bring in people who have no clue, no orientation, never been in one governmental role in their life to quote, make major changes to the government. That was just ill-conceived, and then to keep firing people. You fired people, and all of a sudden you got planes dropping out the air. You fired the nuclear scientists, the nuclear operators, and then you got to turn around and try to rehire them, and you don't even have a list of who they are. The tragedies and all of this Doge damage. Because call it what it is Doge damage to our government that has been done has resulted in not a more efficient government, not a more streamlined government. It's resulted in chaos. Chaos. Mainly, people are holding stuff together with glue and rubber bands and bubble, all kinds of bubble gum. I mean, this is not the way you want a government to operate. I just think that one thing I've said from the beginning when I've been on this show, these people are genocidal. They don't care. People keep telling me, oh, Barbara, it's tragic. People are going to die because of these bad, CDC policies that Robert Kennedy is instituting, that there's all of these issues. And I say, people, you don't get it. They want people to die. They absolutely have no investment in your living, no investment in your best health. They don't give a darn. This is not what they're about. They're about their ideological pursuits. They're about the fact that they think most people are genetically inferior, and they got this big eugenics mania in their head about who's the most fit. And you say, well, aren't they white supremacists? Yes, but they think 40% of all white people are dumb and genetically inferior, and that not all white people are the same. So you got to understand how sick they are, how mentally sick they are.
My good friend Jeff Kennedy often talks about the eugenics movement and just how wedded these Trumpites at the level of the White House itself are actually wedded to it. Okay, so let me be Donald Trump again.
Oh, Lord.
From Washington, D.C.
You didn't tell me you were bringing me on to torture me. Okay, go ahead.
I just need to push back a little bit and see where you're going. So I looked over and I saw Karen Bass not being able to control illegal immigrants, and I dropped 4,000 National Guardsmen and 700 Marines into Los Angeles. Barbara, I'm reestablishing law and order. What do you think about that?
What happened after the Eagles won? What happens after every major basketball or other tournament? What do people do? They go out in the street, they get crazy, they burn cars. Come on now, we done seen it and they loot, they vandalize, they just tear up the darn whole neighborhoods near the arenas. Do we call the National Guard on them? No. This quote, what was going on in LA, I'm from Los Angeles. Remember, you're talking about to an Angelino. You're talking about to a Los Angeles born and raised woman. Give me some Compton in the middle of all that and some Watts. It's South Central, but that's who I am. And so I know these areas they're talking about. Alondra Avenue, are you kidding me? Alondra Boulevard, when you're talking about these, just a couple blocks in a city with thousands and thousands and thousands of blocks, and somehow you're saying that because one car that you keep showing over and over that was burned, one person up on a roof, of a car screaming, you telling me that's a full-scale riot? No. See, I lived through the Watts riot. I know what a real riot looks like. I know what it's like to have hundreds of blocks closed off, because I had to navigate those blocks to get home, because I was out of town in Pomona when the Watts riot took place, and I had to literally sneak my way around barricades, down alleys for 70 blocks to get home. So I know what a real riot looks like. This is not what was happening. This was just at the most 3 intersections. Are you kidding me? Folks, this is not what the National Guard is designed to do. This is not what the Marines do. The Marines are for real combat situations. Since when is a few people who are trying to protect undocumented people from being unconstitutionally detained? How does that become some kind of military operation? Listen, this man from day one has wanted to be able to declare martial law. He hates blue states with a passion. He keeps doing this unconstitutional redlining around blue states to be treated worse this way, blue states to be treated worse that way because people didn't vote for him. What kind of president is that? You're supposed to show that by your governance that you can win people over to you, not to try to punish them. So I think that as an Angelino, to my brothers and sisters in Angelino and good old Los Angeles, keep on fighting. Keep on, resisting this madness. And Angela and Karen Bass is absolutely correct to say you don't belong in my city. We had this. We were controlling it. It wasn't the big old major deal you're trying to make it to, but instead you're inflamed the population. And the last thing that nobody's talking about,
Barbara?
the last time I was in LA, I drove around and I
Barbara?
saw all these empty homes. Go ahead.
Barbara, I need you to hold that thought. And I want everyone
Okay.
to know, as we get ready to go to this come forward, I just got to say this very quickly. Barbara, my listeners have to understand that MAGA congressmen, MAGA senators have to get past Barbara Arnwine before they go to the floor and vote. That's amazing. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. You're listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. When we come forward, Attorney Barbara Arnwine. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome back and forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. Barbara, you know what I thought about during the break? Barbara, first of all, welcome back to the show.
Thank you for having me back.
Barbara, you know what I thought about during the break? It occurred to me in this moment that you are speaking for all Black folk and all Black women right now. I don't want to interrupt anything else you're saying. Barbara, what is on your mind?
Oh, there's so much on my mind. One dominant thought that has been really driving me all for the last several weeks is that we're getting ready for the July 17th John Lewis National Day of Action. You know, I was blessed when I was in Chicago for the Rainbow Push Coalition convention to speak as one of the few speakers at the No Kings rally in Daly Square Plaza, and I was so happy to be able to stand up there with Reverend Jeanette Wilson of Rainbow Push and to urge that crowd. Now, Jesse, you should know that when Reverend Wilson and I stood up and came to the podium, before we said a word, people were screaming, hollering, and acting up. They were so happy to see two Black women. I'm just going to tell you. They were so happy to know that we were there to bring the fire, right? And Reverend Wilson was brilliant. I mean, she gave a beautiful speech, and I did my thing to rally the crowd, and there were just beautiful speakers all around. And then as we got ready to march, Reverend Jackson showed up in the wheelchair. And I'm telling you, people went crazy to see him. And then, as we were marching down the street, people were just, holding their hearts, their hands over their hearts, just to see him and to see his continuing involvement. And then came the Rainbow Push bus. A load of people holding up the Rainbow Push signs and rainbow signs, and people would start yelling. You could tell where they were by all the yelling and screaming because people were so excited to see them. You got to imagine, everyone, we're talking about minimally 75,000 people, minimally. Some people said 100,000. That's probably more accurate, but I have never seen a crowd that big. But what was amazing is that because everybody was focused on why they were there, which was to oppose the unconstitutional, monarchical, actions of this administration, this wannabe dictator, telling them no, not happening, no kings, because people were so focused, it was just brilliantly run. People were so polite to each other because, usually when you're in a crowd, they're jostling and pushing and doing all that. They were so considerate, so careful, so helping to each other. I was just blown away. I said, this is like nothing I've ever seen. And I've been in hundreds of marches, hundreds of protests over my lifetime. But to see that particular turnout of families of multiple generations, to see how much passion people had, how patient they were, because if you got 75,000 people coming out of the Daly Plaza area, you can imagine how long it took to feed everybody into that parade and into that march, and to just see how many people were there, how enthusiastic they were, and how on point they were about all the things wrong that's going on in our country, and saying something has to be done, that this is not acceptable. That this, because I think what people need to understand, what do people want? People want everything we wanted last year. We want a truly inclusive, robust, non-discriminatory, open, engaged, representative, multiracial democracy. That will never go away. That is our quest. That was John Lewis's quest back in the 60s, before there was a Voting Rights Act. That will be our quest until we achieve it. It was just, so those things. But now people are saying, we want this administration, what people want is for it to take a total U-turn and to stop what it's engaging in, to stop, being taken over by these white supremacist, eugenic-based madmen, to stop, it's assault on DEI, to stop. It's assault on Social Security. It's assault on Medicaid. It's assault on our health, to stop. All of this unconstitutional action of mass deportations, all of these things without, let me be clear, mass deportations without constitutional protections. One thing about the 14th Amendment, it was written, the authors of the Reconstruction Congress, and you know this better than most people, most of even me, were so thoughtful about who were they going to protect under the rubric of the 14th Amendment. They could have just said only citizens are protected by the 14th Amendment. But they understood the danger of how people could be treated if somebody wanted to declare that somehow they were a non-citizen and they had no right to fight that declaration. So they created the 14th Amendment and made it clear that it applied to who? All persons. Persons in the United States. All persons. So there's a reason why we say that people are entitled, who are in this nation, are
So you,
entitled to
you're
at
making,
least due process of law.
Barbara, you're making the distinction that the 14th Amendment not only identifies citizenship rights, but it extends it beyond citizens by saying all persons.
Exactly.
So a
And that's
non-citizen does have 14th Amendment rights by way of the all or any persons clause.
You got it. You got it. And that's what people don't know. It's a tragedy that our civics, education is so down in this country that people get fooled by what really is the power of the executive and what the power is of the federal government versus the state governments. Some people, I've been, going and attending a lot of sessions and studying on my own the whole Third Reich period from the 1930s through the 1940s, so that I understand what's going on, what they're trying to emulate here. I've been, looking at authoritarian regimes, past and present, throughout the world. And the one thing that they all have in common, they try to squelch dissent. They try to intimidate and and destroy any movements to hold them accountable. They try to attack institutions, academic institutions like Harvard that we're seeing the attacks now. They try to attack the legal profession big time. Judges, I mean, they have assassinated judges in some of these really authoritarian countries, and imprisoned lawyers and imprisoned journalists. I mean, these are the things they do because they know that if the population speaks up and resists, that we should not have the kind of authoritarian and autocratic rule that they want. Now, also check this out. One thing I've also heard people say is that the U.S. is fortunate in that the U.S. has a federalist structure, that a lot of the authoritarian regimes don't have state governments that can stand up to the federal government and say, no, as for my state, you can't do that here. That we, by the 10th Amendment, have state rights that you can't alienate. And that this is so important. So they've been talking about that the U.S. Constitution and that it gives power to the states. Ironically, right?
Yeah,
Ironically.
of course, it's ironic. And Barbara, I got to cut you off right there. I talked to Letitia James about that and about 5 other attorney generals who are using states' rights and really have turned the historic argument on their head. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. When we come forward, Tenacious Tuesdays will continue with attorney Barbara Arnwine. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. My very special guest on Tenacious Tuesdays is our most tenacious contributor, Barbara Arnwine. Barbara, I have a question for you. First of all, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Thank you.
Barbara, is it your sense that the resistance movement, the anxiety, the angst that the people are feeling, women, particularly Black women who showed up in great numbers for Kamala Harris, is it your sense that this will translate into a Speaker Jeffries or victories at the congressional level, given the history that the midterm elections usually vote against the agenda of the President of the United States?
First of all, yes, I do think it's going to translate into more movement and more activation. You got to remember, everybody, we still haven't talked about this. Those 19 million people who voted in 2020, who sat out 2024, and who either voted in 2020 and didn't vote again, or were registered Democratic. I'm just talking, partisan about what actually happened, and still didn't vote. You got that non-voting core. People better spend every minute they have trying to figure out why people didn't vote. Every minute, to figure out how to motivate those people and the millions, the 4 or more million who will become eligible to vote again over these coming years, to make sure that there is that focus. Now, one thing we're doing that's nonpartisan, but it's certainly it's certainly engaging this administration, is on July 17th. We're having the John Lewis Day of Action. That's why I look so rough, folks, because I've been working. We have we got close to 500 different events happening around the country, almost in every single state. And people are turning out, and people have been talking about the Black absence. Well, honey, these Black organizations, Latino organizations, Native American, Asian young people organizations, they are showing up to be part of John Lewis. And so I am so happy to see the multiracial face of this mobilization. I anticipate that by the time we get to July 17th, we'll have over 1,000 plus events, because they're just coming in like crazy. Every time I look up, there's another one crawling across my screen, another event. I'm so proud of all the people who are hosting these events, all the people who are ready to get back out in the street. But this time, we're centering racial justice. We're centering voting rights. No voter suppression, and we're centering, the whole fight for an inclusive, robust, multiracial democracy. So we know what has to be done, and I'm so glad that the call is being answered, and that it's a clarion call. And I'm so glad that we're working alongside all our great partners. I mentioned Rainbow Push earlier, but we're also working with Indivisible, 5051, League of Women Voters, Leadership Conference, National Urban League, Black Voters Matters. You name it, people are showing up and showing out. And I can't wait for July 17th, because that Thursday, we're going to say to the nation that, yes, this struggle against no kings, the struggle for hands off, is also has to include and be very heavily centered around making sure that we have racial justice. So I am deep in that, answering all these hundreds and hundreds of calls and requests, and scheduling meetings and meeting with folks and doing all the organizing that it takes. But we're having a major meeting tomorrow night at 7:00 Eastern. For everybody who wants to participate, you can go to goodtroubleliveson.org, goodtroubleliveson.org. You can sign up to host an event. You can sign up to participate in one. You can sign up to volunteer, but also you can get the information about how to attend our meeting tomorrow, or meeting on the 12th anniversary of Shelby Holder versus Holder horrible decision that hurt the Voting Rights Act. We're going to talk about that and what we can do about it, and we're going to talk about how we're going to organize and turn up on July 17th. So
Barbara?
that is the obsession.
Barbara, we have about a minute and 30 seconds, and I have a question that I'm sure all of our listeners and viewers want to know. Where does the energy, the faith, the commitment come from that fortifies you to be the activist that you are? Barbara, you have 90 seconds.
Ella Baker, Harriet Tubman, so many amazing, Fannie Lou Hamer, Diane Nash, all of my sisters, all of my brothers, Frederick Douglass, Malcolm X, everybody who had the wisdom, the blessing upon them. Plus, I'm a God woman, right? I believe in divine justice. I believe it's true. And I believe that nothing happens without us personally being involved. And so I am a blessed woman that I carry these spirits in my heart, and I let it just give me the energy, the insight, the wisdom to be involved in this struggle. And I'm inviting everybody. Let's all get in. Let's all do what we're capable of doing. We are all needed. This moment calls for all of us to be out there on the front lines.
It's Tenacious Tuesdays with Barbara Arnwine. On the grind, she reached back and grabbed the ancestors and shared with you where her faith, her energy, and her commitment that fortifies her during difficult hours comes from. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. You've been listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. Until tomorrow, we'll be with Todd Yeary, 1 foot in the pulpit, 1 foot in the courtroom. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr.